What if I told you that one man's ambition would bring the mightiest republic the world had ever seen to its knees? That a single general would cross a forbidden river with just one legion, sparking a civil war that would transform Rome forever? The name Julius Caesar evokes images of power, conquest, and betrayal. But who is the real man behind the legend? Today, we're diving deep into the extraordinary life of Gaius Julius Caesar, a story filled with political genius, military brilliance, forbidden romance, and one of history's most shocking murders. Picture this. It's March 15th, 44 BCE. The most powerful man in Rome walks into the Senate House, surrounded by men he considers friends and colleagues. Within minutes, he'll be lying in a pool of his own blood, stabbed 23 times. His last words? Perhaps Et tu, Brute? And you, Brutus? But this dramatic end is just the climax of a story that begins decades earlier, in a Rome teetering between glory and chaos. Let's rewind to July 100 BC. Gaius Julius Caesar is born into a patrician family, noble by blood, but far from wealthy by Roman standards. His father bears the same name, and his mother, Aurelia, is known for her intelligence and strong character. The Julii clan claims descent from Julius, son of the Trojan hero Aeneas, who was himself the son of the goddess Venus. Imagine growing up believing you're descended from a goddess. This divine ancestry isn't just family mythology to young Caesar, it's destiny calling. But here's where it gets interesting. Despite their noble lineage, the Caesars aren't among Rome's elite power players. They're what we might call middle management of the aristocracy. Young Caesar grows up in the Suburra, a working-class neighborhood of Rome. Hardly the upbringing you'd expect for a future dictator. This environment shapes him profoundly. Unlike many of his privileged contemporaries, Caesar understands the common people because he lives among them. Rome in Caesar's youth is a powder keg. The social war is raging. Italian allies are fighting for Roman citizenship. Political violence is becoming commonplace. Two factions dominate: the Optimates, representing the conservative Senate aristocracy, and the Populars, who seek support from the common people. Caesar's family aligns with the Populars, and this choice will define his entire career. At age 16, something happens that changes everything. Caesar's father dies suddenly while putting on his shoes one morning. No warning, no illness, just gone. Overnight, young Caesar becomes the head of his family. But fate has more in store. His uncle by marriage is Gaius Marius, one of Rome's greatest generals and a champion of the Populars. Marius arranges for Caesar to marry Cornelia, daughter of Cinna, another powerful Populars leader. Caesar is now connected to the most dangerous men in Rome. Then comes the terror. Lucius Cornelius Sulla, champion of the Optimates, marches on Rome with his legions. The first time a Roman general has ever turned his army against the city itself. Marius flees. When he returns, he unleashes a bloodbath, executing his political enemies. After Marius dies, Sulla returns with vengeance. He creates the proscription list, death sentences posted publicly. Your name on that list? Your property is confiscated, and anyone can kill you for a reward. Caesar's name appears on the list. He's barely 20 years old. Why? Sulla demands Caesar divorce Cornelia and marry someone from an Optimate family. Caesar refuses. Think about that. A young man with everything to lose chooses love and principle over survival. He goes into hiding, moving from house to house, bribing soldiers, barely staying ahead of Sulla's death squads. He contracts malaria during this time, shivering with fever in safe houses, knowing each day could be his last. Friends and family eventually convince Sulla to pardon Caesar, but the dictator warns. In that young man, there are many Mariuses. Caesar wisely decides Rome isn't safe and leaves for military service in Asia Minor. He distinguishes himself in battle, earning the civic crown, Rome's second highest military honor, for saving a fellow soldier's life. But it's what happens next that truly reveals Caesar's character. In 75 BCE, Caesar is sailing to Rhodes to study philosophy and rhetoric when pirates capture his ship. These aren't small-time criminals. Cilician pirates control much of the Mediterranean. They demand 20 talents of silver for his ransom. Caesar laughs in their faces. 20 talents? I'm worth at least 50. He actually insults them for undervaluing him. But here's where it gets wild. For 38 days, Caesar is their prisoner. Does he cower in fear? No. He composes poetry and speeches, then forces the pirates to listen and applaud. When they don't appreciate his work, he calls them illiterate barbarians to their faces. He exercises among them, orders them to be quiet when he's sleeping, and plays games with them. The pirates are amused by this audacious young Roman. But Caesar makes them a promise. When I'm free, I'll come back and crucify every one of you. They laugh, thinking it's a joke. The ransom arrives. Caesar goes free, and immediately, he assembles a fleet, hunts down the pirates, captures them all, and crucifies them exactly as he promised. However, because they treated him reasonably well, he shows mercy. He has their throats cut before crucifixion, sparing them the agony of dying slowly on the cross. This is Caesar in a nutshell, charming, ruthless, and true to his word. Returning to Rome, Caesar begins his political ascent. He's not just ambitious. He's strategic. He serves as military tribune, quaestor, and aedile, each position building his reputation. But Caesar has a problem. He's massively in debt. How massive? By modern standards, tens of millions of dollars. Roman politics requires money. You must put on games, bribe voters, fund public works. Caesar borrows from everyone, including Marcus Licinius Crassus, literally the richest man in Rome. In 63 BCE, Caesar runs for Pontifex Maximus, the chief priest of Rome. It's a lifetime appointment with enormous prestige. Two favorites stand against him, both older and more established. Caesar's in so much debt that he tells his mother on election morning, "Today I'll return as Pontifex Maximus or not at all." Exile awaits if he loses. His creditors will destroy him. Against all odds, he wins. He's only 37. The following year brings a Catiline conspiracy. A disgruntled nobleman named Catiline plots to overthrow the Republic. When it's exposed, there's debate about punishment. Most senators want immediate execution. Caesar argues for imprisonment, saying summary execution of Roman citizens without trial is illegal. It's a brave stance, but whispers spread that Caesar himself was involved in the plot. The executions proceed, but Caesar's gained respect for his principles and courage. By 60 BCE, Rome's political system is dysfunctional. The Senate is gridlocked, powerful generals command loyal armies, and the Republic's institutions are cracking. Caesar sees opportunity. He brokers a secret alliance between himself, Pompey the Great, and Crassus. History calls it the First Triumvirate, but officially it doesn't exist, just three powerful men agreeing to support each other. Pompey is Rome's most celebrated general, hero of campaigns across the Mediterranean, but the Senate blocks his attempts to reward his veterans with land. He's frustrated, powerful, and dangerous. Crassus is incomprehensibly wealthy, but lacks military glory, the one thing money can't buy in Rome. Caesar? He has neither vast wealth nor military reputation yet, but he has vision and political genius. The deal is elegant. Crassus provides money, Pompey provides political muscle and prestige, and Caesar will use his consulship, which they'll help him win, to give each what they want. Caesar marries his daughter Julia to Pompey, binding them in alliance. When Caesar becomes consul in 59 BCE, he rams through legislation granting Pompey's veterans land and ratifying his eastern settlements. He gives Crassus tax breaks for his financial interests. And for himself, Caesar arranges a 5-year command of Gaul, the governorship that will make him immortal. But his consulship is controversial. Caesar ignores his co-consul, uses intimidation, and passes laws without proper procedure. The Senate's conservatives are outraged. Cato the Younger, the Republic's moral conscience, opposes Caesar at every turn. Marcus Cicero, Rome's greatest orator, watches nervously. They sense Caesar is dangerous, but they can't stop him. In 58 BCE, Caesar leaves for Gaul with 4 legions, about 20,000 men. He'll return 9 years later with the most battle-hardened army Rome has ever seen and a reputation that rivals any Roman who ever lived. Gaul, roughly modern France, Belgium, and parts of Germany, is tribal territory. The Gauls are fierce warriors with sophisticated culture, but they're divided into rival tribes constantly fighting each other. Rome already controls southern Gaul province, but the north is independent. Caesar's official mandate is defensive, protect Rome's Gallic ally from German tribes crossing the Rhine. But Caesar has greater ambitions. He sees Gaul as Alexander saw Persia, territory ripe for conquest, glory for the taking, and wealth beyond imagination. More importantly, he needs military achievement to match Pompey's reputation. In Gaul, he'll find it. The Gallic Wars begin almost immediately. The Helvetii tribe decides to migrate across Roman territory. Caesar intercepts them, and in a massive battle, destroys their army. He forces survivors to return to their homeland. It's brutal and establishes his reputation. Cross Caesar, and you'll be destroyed. Next, the German king Ariovistus crosses the Rhine with 120,000 warriors, threatening Rome's Gallic allies. Caesar marches north and meets the Germans in battle. His legions are terrified. The Germans are huge, fierce, and have never been defeated. Caesar's officers make excuses to avoid battle. Caesar shames them, saying he'll advance with just the 10th Legion if necessary. It works. In the battle, Roman discipline triumphs over German ferocity. Ariovistus barely escapes with his life. Year by year, Caesar campaigns across Gaul. He writes dispatches back to Rome, clean, clear prose that becomes his commentaries on the Gallic Wars, one of the greatest military texts ever written. But these aren't just reports. They're propaganda masterpieces, making Caesar the hero of every engagement, building his legend with each victory. In 57 BCE, he conquers the Belgae in the north, tribe so fierce that Caesar calls him the bravest of all Gauls. He defeats the Nervii in a battle where his own life hangs by a thread. The Nervii ambush his army while camp is being built. Legions scatter in panic. Caesar grabs a shield, runs to the front lines, and rallies his men by personal example. The battle is desperate, fought hand-to-hand, but Roman discipline eventually prevails. Later, Caesar learns that of 60,000 Nervii warriors, only 500 survived. It's genocide, but in Rome, it's celebrated as glorious victory. In 56 BCE, he campaigns against tribes on the Atlantic coast, building a fleet and defeating the Veneti in naval battles. In 55 BCE, Caesar does something no Roman has ever done. He builds a bridge across the Rhine in just 10 days and marches his legions into Germany. He doesn't stay long, just enough to make a statement. Rome can reach anywhere. Then he does something even more audacious. He invades Britain. Britain mysterious, fog-shrouded, at the edge of the known world. Romans believe it inhabited by savage, painted warriors and filled with treasures. Caesar launches 2 expeditions in 55 and 54 BCE. The first is nearly disastrous. Storms wreck his ships, and British warriors in chariots harass his legions. The second is more successful. He advances inland, defeats several tribes, and takes hostages. Britain won't be truly conquered for another century, but Caesar's expeditions capture Roman imagination. He's gone beyond the world's edge. But Gaul isn't pacified. In 52 BCE, the tribes unite under a brilliant leader named Vercingetorix. This young Gallic nobleman unites dozens of tribes in the greatest threat Caesar has faced. Vercingetorix uses guerrilla tactics, scorched earth, avoiding pitched battles, attacking Roman supply lines. Caesar's army faces starvation. His legions suffer their first major defeat at Gergovia. The final confrontation comes at Alesia. Vercingetorix retreats into this hilltop fortress with 80,000 warriors. Caesar lays siege, but a relief army of 250,000 Gauls marches to break the siege. Caesar's 60,000 legionaries are now trapped between 2 massive armies. What does Caesar do? He builds 2 walls. One facing inward to contain Vercingetorix, one facing outward to hold off the relief force. It's insane, brilliant, and desperate. The battle rages for days. Romans fight on 2 fronts simultaneously. At the critical moment, Caesar leads his cavalry in a flanking attack that breaks the relief army. Vercingetorix, seeing his people slaughtered, surrenders to save lives. Caesar shows no mercy. He distributes captured Gauls as slaves to his soldiers, 1 slave for every legionary. Vercingetorix is imprisoned, paraded in Caesar's triumph years later, then strangled in prison. The conquest of Gaul cost an estimated 1 million Gallic lives, with another million enslaved. It's one of history's greatest military achievements and worst atrocities combined. But while Caesar conquers Gaul, Rome is falling apart. In 54 BC, Julia, Caesar's daughter, Pompey's wife, dies in childbirth. The personal bond between Caesar and Pompey dies with her. In 53 BCE, Crassus leads an army against Parthia, seeking military glory to match his partners. It ends in catastrophe at Carrhae. Crassus is killed, and 20,000 Romans die or are captured. The triumvirate is broken. Pompey grows closer to the Senate's conservatives. They see him as a tool to stop Caesar. The question becomes, what happens when Caesar's command ends? Will he return to Rome as a private citizen, vulnerable to prosecution from his enemies? Or will he keep his army in command? Roman law is clear. No general may bring an army into Italy. The boundary is the Rubicon River. Cross it with soldiers, and you're declaring war on Rome itself. By 50 BC, tension is unbearable. The Senate demands Caesar disband his army and return to Rome. Caesar's allies in the Senate, including tribunes Mark Antony and Cassius, try to negotiate. The proposal: both Caesar and Pompey should disband their armies simultaneously. Pompey's supporters refuse. In January 49 BCE, the Senate passes an ultimate decree, essentially martial law, and orders Caesar to declare a public enemy if he doesn't comply. Caesar's at Ravenna with just one legion, the 13th. His officers debate. Crossing the Rubicon means civil war. Gaius Asinius Pollio, who's present, later writes that Caesar quotes a Greek phrase, alia iacta est, the die is cast. Some sources say he actually said, let the dice fly. On January 10th, 49 BCE, Caesar crosses the Rubicon. It's not a dramatic military moment, just one legion wading across a small river, but its implications are staggering. For the first time since Sulla, a Roman general is marching on Rome. Civil war has begun. And here's what's remarkable. Caesar doesn't just invade. He conquers Italy through clemency. Town after town opens its gates because Caesar promises no prescriptions, no mass executions, no looting. When he captures enemy soldiers, he lets them go free. Pompey's strategy collapses. Pompey flees to Greece with the Senate's leadership, planning to strangle Caesar with superior resources. Caesar can't follow immediately. Pompey controls the navy. Instead, Caesar marches to Spain and defeats Pompey's legions there, famously saying, I go to meet an army without a leader, so that later I can meet a leader without an army. In 48 BC, Caesar finally crosses to Greece. At Dyrrhachium, Pompey outmaneuvers him, and Caesar's army nearly breaks. But Caesar retreats in good order, and Pompey, overconfident, pursues. They meet at Pharsalus on August 9th, 48 BC. Pompey has 45,000 infantry and 7,000 cavalry. Caesar has 22,000 infantry and 1,000 cavalry. Pompey's advisors are already arguing about who will get Caesar's property after the victory. Caesar's veterans are outnumbered but not outmatched. The battle is fierce. Caesar spots that Pompey is relying on his superior cavalry to flank the Roman right. Caesar secretly positions a fourth line of infantry behind his cavalry with orders to thrust their spears at the faces of Pompey's cavalry. It works. Pompey's cavalry breaks and flees. Caesar's forces surround Pompey's army. It's a massacre. Pompey flees the field, eventually reaching Egypt. Caesar pursues with a small force. When he arrives in Alexandria, Egyptian officials present him with a gift: Pompey's severed head and signet ring. They've murdered Pompey, thinking it'll please Caesar. Instead, Caesar weeps. Pompey was his son-in-law, his partner, and at one time his friend. Caesar wanted to defeat Pompey, not see him butchered. He orders Pompey's murderers executed. Egypt in 48 BC is embroiled in civil war. The pharaoh Ptolemy XIII is fighting his sister wife Cleopatra VII for control. Yes, sister wife. Egyptian royalty practice sibling marriage. Cleopatra is 21, brilliant, multilingual, and desperate. She's been driven from Alexandria and needs powerful allies. Legend says she has herself smuggled into Caesar's quarters rolled up in a carpet. When it unrolls, there's Cleopatra. Whether this happened or not, the effect is real. Caesar is captivated. She's not conventionally beautiful by Roman standards, but she's charismatic, intelligent, and speaks 9 languages fluently. Caesar is 52, and this young queen becomes his lover and ally. Caesar sides with Cleopatra against Ptolemy. This triggers the Alexandrian War. Caesar's small force is besieged in Alexandria's palace district. The royal library, one of the ancient world's wonders, catches fire during the fighting. Thousands of irreplaceable texts are destroyed. Caesar is nearly killed several times. Reinforcements finally arrive, and Ptolemy drowns during the final battle. Cleopatra becomes sole ruler of Egypt with Caesar's backing, and she's pregnant with Caesar's child, a son she'll name Caesarion. Caesar spends months in Egypt, supposedly sailing down the Nile with Cleopatra in lavish pleasure barges. For a man who spent years on military campaigns, it's a fantasy interlude. But his enemies in Rome aren't idle. Caesar returns to military campaigning. In Asia Minor, King Pharnaces has invaded Roman territory. Caesar marches against him, and at the Battle of Zela in 47 BC, achieves such a swift victory that he sends his famous dispatch to Rome. Veni, vidi, vici, I came, I saw, I conquered. It's the ultimate military flex. In 46 BC, Caesar returns to Rome and is voted dictator. But Republican diehards, including Cato and Pompey's sons, have established a base in North Africa. Caesar invades and at Thapsus destroys their army. Cato, the Republic's moral center, commits suicide rather than live under Caesar's rule. His death makes him a martyr and haunts Caesar. One more campaign remains. Pompey's sons raise another army in Spain. At Munda in 45 BC, Caesar fights his hardest battle. He's nearly defeated and personally grabs a shield to rally his troops. Victory is narrow, but final. The civil war is over. Caesar returns to Rome as absolute master. He's voted dictator perpetuo, dictator for life. It's unprecedented. The Senate lavishes honors on him. His face on coins, a golden chair in the Senate, temples in his honor. Some senators even propose crowning him king, though Caesar publicly refuses the title. Romans hate kings. They overthrew their last one 450 years earlier. But Caesar's reforms are remarkable. He reforms the calendar, creating the Julian calendar with 365 days, and a leap year. We still use a version of it. Passes debt relief legislation reforms provincial administration to reduce corruption, grants citizenship to people in Gaul, and Spain redistributes land to veterans, and poor citizens expands the Senate from 600 to 900 members, including former enemies, and provincials plans massive public works, new libraries, a theater, draining marshes. He's transforming Rome from a city-state republic into the administrative center of an empire. But these changes threaten the aristocracy's power. The Senate's old guard sees their privileges eroding. Pardoned enemies occupy positions they feel should be theirs by birth. Conspiracy begins to brew. Marcus Junius Brutus is central to it. Caesar has shown Brutus enormous favor. He's descended from the Brutus who founded the Republic by overthrowing the last king. Caesar probably had an affair with Brutus's mother, Servilia, and some even whisper that Brutus is Caesar's illegitimate son. Despite fighting for Pompey, Brutus was pardoned and given high office. But Brutus believes in the Republic above all. Gaius Cassius Longinus is another key conspirator. He fought with distinction but resents Caesar's dominance. About 60 senators eventually join the plot. They call themselves the liberatores, liberators. Their plan: assassinate Caesar in the Senate before he leaves for a planned military campaign against Parthia. Once he's gone with his legions, they'll never get another chance. Warnings reach Caesar. Soothsayers warn him to beware the Ides of March. His wife Calpurnia has nightmares of his murder. Friends urge caution. But Caesar has dismissed his personal bodyguard. He says if he's to die, better be quick than to live in constant fear. Some historians think he's simply exhausted, ready for it to end. On March 15th, 44 BCE, Caesar goes to the Senate meeting at Pompey's theater complex. His friend Decimus Brutus, one of the conspirators, convinced him to attend despite Calpurnia's fears. As Caesar enters, a senator named Tullius Cimber approaches with a petition. It's the signal. He grabs Caesar's toga. Casca strikes first, stabbing Caesar in the neck. Chaos erupts. Caesar fights back, using his stylus, writing instrument, as a weapon. But senators surround him, stabbing repeatedly. Caesar struggles until he sees Brutus among the attackers. Ancient sources say he spoke, "Kai su teknon?" You too, child. He pulls his toga over his head and stops resisting. 23 stab wounds later, Julius Caesar collapses at the base of Pompey's statue. The conspirators flee, leaving his body bleeding on the Senate floor. The liberatories expect Romans to celebrate Caesar's death as the restoration of freedom. Instead, Mark Antony, Caesar's loyal deputy, turns public opinion. He displays Caesar's bloodied toga and reads his will. Caesar leaves money to every Roman citizen and his private gardens to the public. The crowd riots. The conspirators flee Rome. Caesar's assassination doesn't save the Republic. It destroys it. Civil war erupts again. Brutus and Cassius are defeated at Philippi in 42 BC by Antony, and Caesar's adopted heir, Octavian, later Augustus. Both commit suicide. Antony allies with Cleopatra, Caesar's former lover. Eventually, Octavian defeats him at Actium in 31 BCE. Antony and Cleopatra commit suicide. Caesar Ion, Caesar's son with Cleopatra, is murdered. In 27 BCE, Octavian becomes Augustus, Rome's first emperor. The Republic is dead. The empire has begun. It happened exactly as Caesar's enemies feared, but ironically because they murdered him. Caesar's reforms continue. The Julian calendar, the expansion of citizenship, the imperial administration. His military tactics are studied for millennia. His commentaries remain a literary masterpiece. The month of July is named for him. But who was Caesar really? A liberator who extended citizenship and sought to reform a corrupt system? Or a tyrant who destroyed the Republic to satisfy his ambition? Perhaps both. He was undeniably brilliant, military genius, political mastermind, skilled writer, charismatic leader. He was also ruthless. His conquest of Gaul killed or enslaved millions. He broke laws, ignored traditions, and centralized power in his own hands. Modern historians debate his legacy endlessly. Would the Republic have survived without Caesar? Probably not. It was already failing. Did Caesar plan to become king or emperor? We'll never know. He was murdered before revealing his ultimate intentions. What's certain is that one man's ambition reshaped Western civilization. The Roman Empire that emerged from Caesar's legacy would dominate the Mediterranean for 5 centuries. Its legal systems, languages, and culture shaped European civilization. Christianity spread through the structure of the Roman Empire. Modern law, governance, and military strategy still bear Caesar's fingerprints. So here's what I want you to think about. Was Julius Caesar's assassination justified? Were the liberatories heroes defending the Republic, or murderers who plunged Rome into civil war? Would Rome have been better under Caesar's continued rule? Or did the conspirators correctly identify him as an existential threat to freedom? There's no simple answer. Caesar transformed a dying republic into the foundation of empire, but at what cost? His enemies feared he'd become king. His supporters believed he was saving Rome from itself. The conspiracy to kill him didn't restore the republic. It ended it. Yet if they'd done nothing, Caesar might have ended it anyway, but on his terms. History remembers Caesar as perhaps antiquity's most famous figure. His name became synonymous with ruler. Kaiser, Tsar, both derived from Caesar. 2,000 years later, we still debate his actions, study his campaigns, and wonder what would have happened if Brutus's dagger had missed. This is the paradox of Julius Caesar. He was Rome's greatest general and the man who destroyed the Roman Republic. He was a reformer who improved countless lives and a conqueror who enslaved millions. He was a political genius and a constitutional criminal. He was murdered for tyranny but became the template for every emperor who followed. He was, in short, profoundly human, ambitious, brilliant, flawed, and ultimately mortal, despite believing himself descended from gods. If you found this deep dive into Caesar's extraordinary life fascinating, I want to hear from you. What historical figures should we explore next? Alexander the Great? Cleopatra herself? Napoleon? Genghis Khan? Drop your suggestions in the comments below. And if you're hungry for more incredible stories from history, the battles, betrayals, and brilliant minds that shaped our world. Make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. History isn't just dates and dead people. It's the most dramatic, surprising, and relevant story ever told. See you in the next episode, where we'll uncover another legend who changed everything.